insight. Listen, this is significant. Most of us say our children don't know anything. They don't know anything. Don't ask them nothing. Don't stress them out. Don't do anything. He's 8.
Yes.
So he must, God speaks to everybody, and that's why it says training starts real young.
Yes.
Because even though he was trained in the kingly things, spiritually, he was seeing. He had heard the stories, those
Yes.
Bible stories. He hasn't heard stories of Moses. He's heard about the crossing of the Red Sea, because that's what's coming down the generations there. His
Okay.
parents must have told him about that. And now getting these documents that were written, authentic documents, this child at 8 allowed the Spirit to use them.
Yes. Yes. So again, like we said, and the thing too about his father, what do we know about his father? His father was one of the wicked people.
Wicked.
Okay? So we're going to check a generational transition. So from one of the most wicked kings that they had to now he's this young man at 8 years old and he's have this great knowledge. And like the sister said, that not only did he have the general knowledge, but he had the spiritual knowledge also. So when he began to hear these things and all these things begin to act upon his heart, he said, hey, wait a minute here. We are going the wrong way, and immediately, we're going to change.
Somewhere I read that it said, you know how people send their kids to church but they don't go?
Mm-hmm.
So he was being trained, even though his father was wicked, as a child, he's being trained in spiritual things, because the teachers have to teach him about the history, about where his people are from, about God. So he had that. So he's hearing this teaching here, which is good, and he's seeing his father, which is bad, and he's like, but that's not what the book says.
Exactly.
So sending your kids to church, even if you don't go, I don't get mad at anybody who send their kids to church and don't go, because the child is gonna make that difference at some point. And God can use that child.
Yes, and what you did. Yeah. So Sister Ann, can you back up one, please? One slide. Just go back. Say the end of the first one for the time being, for the first couple minutes here. Okay, so continuing in the book. So they say the significant thing about this book also is called the Covenant Book. The Covenant Book. It was where a lot of the things that Moses put together was renewing the covenant that was made with the
God and Israel.
right. So God and the early generations, because throughout that span of 40 years, that whole generation lost everything. So, and if in this book of Deuteronomy, it was a constant reminder of, remember how God brought your fathers out of where? Egypt, and the miracles that he did in the desert, and he just a constant reminder. So that's what he said, this was the covenant book. Okay? But the interesting thing is, this book is, the title of the order is being called Present Truth. And that is where I want to spend some time comparing the book of Deuteronomy, we know as the ancient book, to present truth. Okay? And that's where we're going to go. So we take a look at the preamble. When you hear the term preamble, what comes to your mind?
Something happened before.
Okay, something happened before.
Some contract, something.
Okay, anything else? Preamble, when you hear preamble? Nothing else come to our mind?
Oh, we have a constitution.
Okay. So, does anybody remember the first line of the preamble of the Constitution of the United States of America? Say again, the first sentence. The first sentence. Anybody remember the first sentence?
We the people. No, we won't.
Yeah, we the people. And what we the people are going to do in the first sentence of the preamble? Chris, do you remember anything of that from school?
Establish a more perfect.
Well, before we get there, yes, so it says, we the people, in order to anything here as far as present day truth and Deuteronomy, the covenant that we just talked about, the covenant from Deuteronomy, right? And that was the new covenant that Moses did with the people, God and the people. So in order to form a more perfect union, and then he went on to tell you, in our constitutional preamble, these are the things that we're going to need to do. And the first one was to establish justice. Establish justice. When God was dealing with the people in Deuteronomy, was there justice being established back there with those Israelites?
Yes.
Yes.
That was amazing.
So justice was constantly being between justice and mercy. Justice and mercy. Because, we're saying if they treated them, if God treated them as they deserved justice-wise, they would have gotten wiped out so much sooner. Because the first thing, if you remember, when Moses went up to the mountain to get the commandments, he came back down. What did he hear? What was going on?
Party.
Exactly. Racketeering party was going on, right? And if you study the Bible and that story, it was more than just a party. It was a wild party. Okay? And they say all the kind of crazy stuff that they were getting into. And the stuff that they were getting into was in honor to the that they were worshiping. Okay? There was a lot of lewdness was going on there. It was not just a party, it was a lot of lewdness and idol worshiping and the stuff that they do to worship the idols. Now, if justice, God had laid out full justice there, all of them would have been gone right away. Okay? So that is the comparison we're going to be looking at. The preamble, and that's what this whole quarter is going to be about, the preamble of Deuteronomy versus present day truth. Okay? All right, so we're going to go into Sunday, Sabbath afternoon, or just the introduction there. And we're going to go into Sunday now. Sunday, yes, sister.
Preamble to Deuteronomy. So does that mean something that happened before the book of Deuteronomy?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and Sister Charmaine had mentioned it. So what happened before Deuteronomy was the history of the children of Israel. And that's what we're going to be going into this week. It takes us back from creation and bring us all the way up. So those are all the things that happened before. So that's where we are now on Sunday. Sunday titled Love to Be Loved. And then he talks about the memory text as God is what?
Love.
God is love. And it says, God is not revealing love. It says, God is not manifesting love. What did it say? God is love. See, because when you manifest, that means you're like interpreting, you're making something clearer, right? And he's saying that's not what's happening. He is the love. And that's what it's all about. So we can certainly understand the good news of God is being loved. When we hear of God is love, we think about all the things that God has done for us and to us. And we look back sometimes even in our lives and we say, wow, if it wasn't for the love of God, we don't know where we would be. You see? And so these are the things that is constantly being served as a reminder. Okay, so next please.
So what is love?
Good question. Question is, what is love?
So as the lesson pointed out, everything around us is in love. The whole creation, the whole earth, the whole atmosphere. Satan himself was created in love. What is love? Love is God. There's no conditions for it. It comes naturally. It's something that's given of God. And Satan had it. Lucifer was his name when he was in heaven. He had it. He was beautiful. He had good thoughts. And that love gives us the freedom to choose. And when I think of love, that's what I think of. Because people, we use it so